Myers was purchased by my grandfather in 1949, and it was just a very small company at the time, a few employees, a few local customers, and we've enjoyed really steady growth over the years. Our growth focus is really primarily in the health and beauty, food and beverage segments. We've transitioned from being just a general commercial printer to really focusing on larger brands, point-of-sale displays and signage, and growing in packaging, which includes labels, folding cartons, and even some corrugate packaging.
We started UV curing right around the year 2000. Prior to GEW, we did have other UV curing systems and since have replaced them all with GEW. Curing at times became a limiting factor for us, and we wanted to be able to run our flexo presses faster. We also were looking for some energy savings. We knew we needed to switch to newer systems because our older systems were aging, and it was just time to move to new systems. So we switched our main 3 production lines to LED all at the same time for a few reasons. First of all, we had been testing LED inks for a number of years and knew that the ink technology was there. Secondly, we run a lot of our work interchangeably between all 3 of those machines, and we wanted the ability to have identical capability between the machines so that we could move work back and forth knowing that we would be using the same technology. So we chose GEW for our LED curing systems for a few reasons. Number one, we needed the flexibility to be able to do arc curing or LED, and the cartridge system that GEW has in place really lends itself perfectly to that. Number two, we had a long history with GEW. We installed our first system in 2008. We came to know the people well and the service well, and that gave us comfort. Switching from standard inks to LED inks, we actually switched to a dual cure system about 1.5 years before, so we got used to running the ink system before we actually got the LED curing in-house. We really didn't notice any difference in the density nor in our analox choices. It really was just a drop-in replacement, essentially. We generally use the LED systems for the pigmented inks and arc cassettes for curing adhesives, varnishes, and those types of things. We do have a few projects where customers have qualified UV technology for their inks, and we'll use the E2C cassettes for those projects as well. We use them quite interchangeably with the LED systems. The interchangeability between LED and arc cassettes, absolutely pushed things along for us and probably moved us into LED sooner than we would have had that technology not been available. Again, we have some customers that require arc cured inks still, and their qualification schedules are quite long, so we would have had to have tested and gotten those approved before we moved to LED, had it not been for the ability to change back and forth with the GEW system. To be able to switch between LED and arc curing gives us, all kinds of flexibility, both for our current customer base as well as any future projects that we run into. The LED curing systems are living up to our expectations in terms of getting the speed output that we were expecting. It also reduced our maintenance time significantly. They just run. It's something I don't hear about, and if it doesn't make its way to my level, that means it's not a problem. So we've been very happy with the reliability and the way the systems have been running.
We're in the 3rd generation of Myers ownership, and we've been doing a lot internally to modernize our workflows and be as competitive as we possibly can. And sustainability has been another huge focus for the 3rd generation ownership.
One of our main focuses is on reducing our carbon footprint. And what we do about that is making sure that we're limiting the amount of resources that we're using, and that when we are using resources, we're using them responsibly. So we are large electricity consumers. And so when we look at how we're going to do that responsibly, we want to make sure that we're using the latest and greatest technology, right? And one of those things is LED curing. So to make the same amount of product, we can do that while using a lot less electricity. What matters most to our sustainability conscious clients is what our footprint is, because our footprint is their footprint. Clients want to know what is the impact that we're having, and they're taking that into consideration while they're picking vendors and while they're allocating costs. A lot of them are offsetting the impact of their supply chain. So the impact that we're having matters to them. So when we use fewer resources, that has a tangible benefit. They look at what's called scopes 1, 2, and 3 emissions. Scope 1 is what happens at your facility. Scope 2 is what happens to get the utilities that you use to you. So if you're using electricity generated from coal, you'll have a much larger Scope 2 than if you're using electricity generated from wind and solar. Scope 3 is what happens upstream and downstream from your own operations. So that would be for us what goes into growing trees that get harvested to become paper, and then what happens after it leaves here. So for us, that's shipping our product. It's end of life, right? So is your product being recycled? One of our large leading customers, a giant household name, does award business based on the sustainability of their suppliers. They actually calculate the cost of the impact of everything that they source. And that cost of offsetting that environmental impact gets levied upon the department that's buying the supplies. There's literally a one-to-one relationship on the impact that you're having on the environment and the cost that they view of buying from you as a supplier. It literally makes us lower cost than the alternative suppliers that aren't as focused on sustainability.
We've been very happy with the way our LED installations have gone, as well as the results we've gotten since switching to LED inks. We spent a lot of time testing up front to make sure that it works on our substrates, for our subject matter, with our analoxes and a number of other things. So for anybody thinking about going into LED, I think it's time.